All right, everyone, welcome into Scoop City. I'm Chase Daniel, and we are taking roll call at mandatory minicamps across the league on today's show. Who showed up and who stayed out? Don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest scoop. We read all your comments, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, all these posts that we're doing. The YouTube channel has been great. Please like and subscribe. Zach, great to have you back, man. How you doing?
I know. Let's do this every week. No, I'm just kidding, man. It's good to be back. Let's dig in.
Yes, tons of news happening across the league this week. 24 teams wrapping up their mandatory minicamps. Aaron Rodgers makes his Steeler debut. What the four-time MVP had to say about landing in Pittsburgh. Plus, there is hope for Micah Parsons to get a deal done by training camp. What Micah and Jerry Jones talked about at Cowboys camp. While some players showed up in good faith, there were quite a few that kept their distance. We start with the no-shows. TJ Watt, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson, not at mandatory minicamp, while they wait for a new contract. The Bengals also have a no-show rookie. More drama in Cincy. Here's what we're hearing around the league. All right, 3 days of mandatory minicamp this week for the Cincinnati Bengals, and 3 days without their star pass rusher, Trey Hendrickson. But to add insult to injury, the Bengals rookie defensive end, Shemar Stewart, left camp Thursday as well after he remains unsigned and super frustrated. Stewart, who has yet to practice this entire offseason, he's had a whole lot to say about the front office. Why don't we take a listen right now?
Like some people say, we all agree Trey will be right? But technically he's still 1% wrong for being under contract. So in my case, I'm 100% right, so it should be a no-brainer. And in Trey's case, I think it should be a no-brainer too. I mean, he led 17.5 sacks for 2 years back-to-back. If I was the GM or I was the owner, take all my money. But I guess they don't operate like that. But
all right, Zach, it is getting ugly in the jungle. Zach Taylor Thursday telling reporters he isn't going to make predictions about Stewart's return. Trey Hendrickson has said earlier that he will not play this season, and Cincy, he's dug in there without a new deal. What in the world is happening with the Bengals front office, man?
Man, when you hear a rookie say about his new team, they just want to win arguments more than they want to win games? Like, are you kidding me? This is bad in Cincy, and I don't think some of the other teams we're going to talk about in a minute are in as bad of a situation. I think the Bengals are in a mess right now. You got the veteran Trey Hendrickson, who I believe is dug in, as in like he will miss regular season games if he doesn't get his deal. That's what I think.
Wow.
And then secondly, when's the last time, Chase, you can remember a rookie having this much of a toe-to-toe with the team? I mean, this doesn't happen anymore after the new CBA in 2011. These contracts are structured, and he's saying he's not asking for anything the team hasn't done before. What the heck is going on? And with the backdrop of this being a notoriously cheap team that has taken a long time to pay its players.
Well, and it just takes the spotlight off of the fact that they got Jamar Chase done, that they got T. Higgins done, that they were really hopeful on Trey Hendrickson. Then all of a sudden, you know, minicamp comes and everyone freaks out. Hendrickson's not there. He's been very public about how he's dug in. I mean, I know him personally, Zach, and I played with him in 2017 with the New Orleans Saints. About the most likable and best teammate I've had. Very, very quiet. So when he's going on national talk shows and when he is consistently and constantly talking, you know he's going to be dug in. He missed out on about $104,000 for penalties and fines in minicamp. I do feel like that will get done, but eventually. I think they'll pay him good money. I don't know what they'll do. I don't think it'll be the top money, anywhere between the 35 and 36, $37 million range. The one thing, though, and I follow this Cincy stuff, the one thing that stands out the most to me is Shemar Stewart. Like, when you and here's the thing about the Bengals front office. They have a history of not only being cheap, but trying to work stuff into guys' contracts that I wouldn't say take advantage, but they try to win arguments. And it's what Shemar said. I agree with that. And the fact is, he does have a young agent. He's actually showed up and been a part of stuff without a contract. He was a number 17 overall pick. And in layman's terms, I'm going to try to explain it to our audience as clear as possible. There are fines and there are infractions within an NFL contract that you have that will void your guaranteed money. So always what happens is when a first round pick signs, or any other guy signs, they can go back and forth on what this contract should look like. But since the rookie pay scale went in, all these contracts are slotted. Like 17, they should look at last year, bump it up, all this, and it's good. What's crazy is that the Bengals are trying to get Shemar Stewart to sign a contract that says if he voids any guarantee in year one for anything like missing weights or like whatever they deem that, it'll void the entire contract for guarantees. So that is, first of all, unprecedented. Like it's never happened before. And they sort of said it, they're trying to get Shemar to be the guinea pig. So that's about as easily, now there's way more involved. That's about as easily as I can explain what's going on. But how do you see this happening? Because they've done it a few different times. He left minicamp. He's a rookie. He left minicamp.
You know, if you would have told me that story and not said what team we're talking about and you gave me one guess, I would have nailed this one. And I think everybody out there listening would have. This is what Shemar Stewart said. He said, I'm 100% right. And his teammates are telling him similar things via our pal Daner Jr., who's on the ground in Cincinnati. If you spin this forward to football, and I'm really glad you explained the contract nuances here, because covering the league for as long as I have, talking to players, talking to agents, talking to executives, more often than not, I'm always going to side with the players because they will just kick you out of town unless you're a special talent, and those guys are 1 out of 100. They'll kick you out. They'll get someone else new to take whatever deal they want. This is the Bengals cutting corners. This is what they've done for a long time. Remember, they only signed Joe Burrow a couple of years ago when he was up for a deal 3 days before the season. He's the best thing to happen to them in 30 years. And if you spin this forward, if you take a little bit of a step back, like let's talk about the Bengals and where they're at. Joe Burrow had an MVP season last year. I will say that all summer. I don't care what anyone says. The reason he wasn't top 2 or top 3, Josh Allen was great, Lamar was great, it's because the defense kept losing them games, and he had to be even better. We're talking about 2 defensive, probably starters. Hendrickson, obviously. Shemar Stewart, 17th overall pick, defensive end. They need everything they can get on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that division. And here we are talking about nonsense, distractions. And what did Joe Burrow say this week? He said, yes, I have to admit, it is a distraction. Last year it was 2 contracts. Now they got those done. They paid Jamar. They paid T. Higgins, $276 million total. Now we know contracts, they rarely get to the total value, but the point is they're all in on offense. Their offense is good. They've got an MVP candidate. I don't know what the heck they're doing on defense, and this is a mess of the Bengals' own making.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting that he said it was a distraction because obviously, like I played in quite a few locker rooms, and I've dealt with quite a few, or not dealt with, but I've been a part of and in a locker room with contract disputes. It doesn't necessarily become a distraction because players know that players are going to try to get the most they possibly can in every single way. And the worst thing about, and I don't think I've ever been a part of anything like this where you're trying to set something new that's never been done before, and it's not in the player's favor. I've been a part of guys asking for the most money in NFL history. I'm like, let's go. But you have an organization trying to change how contracts are done. This doesn't only affect, and I think we have to be sure to understand this, this doesn't affect just Shemar Stewart. Every other team that picks after that in the first round for infinity, they're going to be saying, look what Shemar signed. And I think that Shemar and his agent both understand that. And they're like, no. We're not going to ruin it for the entire masses. And
you know who else understands that? The NFLPA. They're keeping close tabs on this as well, as they should.
I was just about to say the union too. I was a voting rep for 8 years. I was a part of 3 CBAs, 3 separate CBAs, and an uncapped year. I've seen it all. The biggest thing that the NFLPA wants to happen is they're fighting for the players. They want the players to stand not only for your generation, but for next generation as well. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. If you do see Shemar sign, and if you do see Trey Hendrickson sign a deal, how good can this Bengals defense be? Because that is, and you said it already, but I want to hit on it. They let go of their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. They've gotten a little bit younger. That is without a doubt the reason why the Bengals didn't make the playoffs. Where do you see this defense taking the next step in this next year?
Usually when you make a change, you see an uptick in performance, right? They've got some new pieces. They've got a new voice. After a while, players tune out some coaches. It just kind of happens over time. Remember, Lou Anarumo was getting head coaching interviews after they made that run to the Super Bowl, and they were one throw away to Jamar Chase away from probably winning that game against the Rams. They need to be better because I love what Joe Burrow said a couple years ago. He said, the window is open as long as I'm here. Like, I love that cockiness from the quarterback. They've got it figured out, but it's going to get a lot harder, and here's why. They're paying so much on the offensive side of the ball, and I agree with that. That's what you have to do in today's NFL. We'll get to that when we talk about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers in a minute, but on defense, they need to take a huge step because Baltimore is not going anywhere. The Steelers have Aaron Rodgers, and they're trying to catch up to that second-place spot in that division. The Browns don't really need much mention on this podcast, but that's the biggest question mark going into the season. And if Trey Hendrickson's not on the field, this Bengals team is not in the Ravens class.
Yeah, Trey led the league in sacks last year. Let's stay defense, and let's stay in the same division. No T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh. Watt is seeking a new contract as he enters a final year of an extension he signed back in 2021. It seemed like just yesterday. Currently the seventh highest paid edge rusher. Come on now, what are we doing? Reports that nothing has progressed in Pittsburgh. Zach, any concern there?
No, and here's why. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a grown-up organization. The Rooneys do not like distractions. Now, they're going to have a couple this year with this new quarterback, I think. But look, they don't do this. They don't make a mess of things. They're a well-run organization. It starts with the ownership, the GM. The head coach has been there forever. And I just don't think T.J. Watt's going to be a distraction. This is a fallout, not from anything the Steelers did. It's a fallout from what the Browns did with Myles Garrett. They paid him quarterback money. Now, T.J. Watt is not, in my opinion, Myles Garrett, but T.J. Watt is the best player on the Steelers roster, and him being the seventh highest paid edge rusher in the league is not going to cut it. And you got to think the guy in Dallas, Micah Parsons, is going to want some of that. These guys, you see the deals get done, and it's always like $1 million more than the last guy. That's what we're dealing with right now. They need to pay T.J. Watt. I think they will. I don't think this will be a distraction in training camp, although I do think it will be in Cincinnati. I think Pittsburgh's going to clean this up. I'm not so sure about the Bengals.
I'd agree with you on T.J. Watt. Watt led the NFL in sacks in 2020 with 15, 2021 with 22.5, and 2023 in 19. 2024, he finished with 11.5 sacks. But he led the NFL in 6 forced fumbles, which I would agree. I would say probably more important than sacks, getting the football out. I'm with you. I'm not worried. Like, I do think it'll get done. I'm interested to see in T.J. Watt's camp, are they trying to outweigh Micah Parsons? Or do you think that's what I'm worried about. Does it get to a point where it does become a distraction in training camp? Because if you're T.J. Watt, you want Micah to sign and be like, hey, I know you're probably not going to get more than Micah, but that's sort of the I guess, storyline I'm following there. I would imagine that he would get at least $40 million a year because that is the bar that Myles Garrett set. And I think it's probably the Steelers are saying, man, we just gave $30 million a year to a receiver. T.J. Watt's probably in his last contract. Of course, we want to pay him, but signing that check for $40 million a year, it shouldn't be hard. I don't think there's going to be an issue with it, but that is one to watch. It's not like he's going to hold out. Like, the dude's in great shape. He's going to continue to do that. Just how important, though, is T.J. Watt to that defense? Steelers offensively lost their leading passer, their leading rusher, and their leading receiver. Teams that have done that the past 3 times, which I think is like it's a span of 10 years, they finished 2-14, 3-14, and I believe 5-12. So not good. What gives you hope that this Steelers team given the defensive collapse they had last year, can raise the bar and maybe make the playoffs.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the defensive collapse because, this is a team built for 1995, 1998, 2001, right? 5 of their highest salaries on their roster on the defensive side of the ball. 5. The top 5. Now, part of that is context, right? Aaron Rodgers is playing for dirt cheap. I get that. And then the new receiver, DK Metcalf, has a low base salary. But that being said, let's think about the best teams in the league right now. How are they run? The Philadelphia Eagles have the best roster. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Nope. Their top 8 contracts are all on the offensive side of the ball. The Buffalo Bills, their top 3 contracts. The Kansas City Chiefs, 6 of their top 7 are on the offensive side of the ball. The one defensive contract is obviously Chris Jones. This is an offensive league, and the Steelers are still behind in that category. So you pay T.J. Watt. Of course you pay him. He's unbelievable. My question to you is, does this change anything? I mean, they're still the same team, and they still have the same problems. They're not going to have a losing season because Mike Tomlin never has losing seasons. But as they say in Pittsburgh, play middle, draft middle, stay middle. Like, they're just a mediocre team who sneaks into the playoffs and never competes for championships. The problem with that is this is the team with 6 Lombardis, and that's the standard there.
Yeah, and we'll get into that when we talk Rodgers coming up in the B block. But let's just transition quickly before we take a break to Terry McLaurin. No Terry McLaurin, T-Mac, in D.C. for the Commanders. McLaurin is in the last year of his deal and wants a new contract before taking the field. He deserves one, honestly. The Commanders also had a wideout, Noah Brown, carted off on the field after suffering an apparent injury during a 7-on-7 drill per the Washington Post. That is not good. Any panic meter here for Scary Terry?
No, and this is a whole new world for the Washington franchise, right? They have expectations. They have belief from the fan base. They have optimism, which is a new thing for them. I spent some time last year with them. I wrote a big story on Jaden Daniels, and Terry McLaurin was absolutely instrumental in getting that rookie to play at the level he did. They have a great locker room. Adam Peters pushed all the right buttons, right? He brought in Bobby Wagner and guys like that, the veterans that kind of changed the culture. I know that's a buzzword and it's a cliche, but they really did, and Terry McLaurin was huge in getting Jaden Daniels to believe from day one he could be the guy.
Yeah.
And they went to the NFC Championship game. So they need to get this done. This is a good problem to have. You want to have good players that want to be paid. But you got to have that guy for the end quarterback.
I'd agree. I don't see any, problem with this deal getting done. It's like, what is it going to get done at, though? Because if you look at DK Metcalf, same draft class, $30 million a year, Scary Terry, my opinion, better receiver than DK Metcalf. Can they even get close to that $30 million? That's going to be interesting to figure out because he is the number one. Now, I know they brought over Debo, and there's been some viral videos of Debo looking out of shape, running slow and all this stuff. It's just sort of how he works. It gets better as the season goes on. He gets faster. I get that. Then you go out, you trade for Larry Tunsil. I mean, this is a team that has not rested on a NFC championship. Their window to win and win maybe a possible Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl or win the NFC is wide open because of the year that Jaden Daniels had last year. I love the fact that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn is probably not talked about enough. We've talked about him quite a bit on this show. I know people in Washington, and you say the culture is a cliche, and I say, yeah, it is, but I also say, you know what, it's very real. He brought belief. He was like the 5th choice in Washington, and what did he do in his first year? I mean, my goodness gracious. And we talked about this or I did on this show last year, or maybe on the Athletic Football Show. I said, hey, in Houston, when they had DeMeco Ryans and they had C.J. Stroud this rookie year, both rookie years, okay? You completely change the next 10 years of a franchise if you have one of those guys, right? Houston had 2 of them. They still do. Same with Washington, man. You have 2 of those guys that are culture guys and the quarterback and the head coach, and I just think they are poised to compete. Where do you view this Commanders team in the NFC hierarchy?
Well, the Eagles are on top. I think the Lions are still better than the Commanders, although the Commanders went to Detroit and smacked them in the playoffs. The reality is they're going to have to do what Houston did last year, and what Houston failed to do was take the next step. That's really hard, right? Now you have the expectations. Now you have the spotlight. the reason I like what Washington's doing is the window is open, not just because of Jaden Daniels on the field, but because of his contract. When you have a star quarterback on that contract, you have the money and the leeway to go pay the veterans that you want, namely Terry McLaurin. You got to keep them. Again, that's a tough division. I don't see them winning that division because of the Eagles, which makes things a little bit tougher. But I still think they're in that second tier in the NFC. Everybody's chasing the Eagles. But there's no reason this team can't think world championship this year and strive for it, because they're good enough. If they get hot in the playoffs, they could do it.
They are good enough, and they do have the quarterback. All right, a little bit more news wrap right here. Some players did show up to mandatory minicamp. That's a good thing. They did not want to lose out on $104,000. One of them, James Cook, on hand in Orchard Park. He is looking for a deal still. The Jets, Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, both of them showed up. Even Kirk Cousins down in Flowery Branch. That's the most expensive backup in NFL history. All right, coming up, more players showing good faith, including Micah Parsons showing up for the Cowboys camp. Plus, you know we're going to talk about it, Aaron Rodgers on the mic after the Steelers' first day wrapped. That is next on Sweep City. All right, we're back. Cowboys All-Pro Micah Parsons working out actually on the field for minicamp. While he waits for a new deal, Micah was seen talking to owner Jerry Jones on the first day of camp and talked to reporters about his conversations, the latest contract talks. Let's take a listen.
We were talking about how my offseason's been, the training I've been putting in, and he told me I looked pretty good, so I got excited about that. Asked me about the trip I just went on, and it was a pretty good conversation. And then obviously just stepping up and being a leader, how much he appreciates I'm here, and that means a lot to me.
How hopeful are you to get a deal done before you go to Oxnard?
I'm pretty hopeful. I'm still hanging tight. Like, I understand it's up to him, and he gives the green light on everything. So hopefully something's done by next month.
Zach, do we think Jerry waits until the last second, like usual, to get a deal done? And will he have to pay even more once Trey Hendrickson gets it done and TJ Watt gets it done?
Yes.
What are we doing? Jerry.
Chase, doesn't this feel more like a show, like a reality show, than a competitive football team? And look,
Yes.
I'm gonna give Micah Parsons credit for showing up and being about teammates and being about ball and being a leader on that team. They have a new head coach, and it matters that he's there. I really believe that. I know it's minicamp. He's a vet. It's not that important in terms of football, but I think his presence matters. But I feel like this is a show. Like, I don't need to remind the listeners, but last year, like Jerry was saying, we're not even close on CeeDee Lamb. They waited. They overpaid him. Great player, but they paid him a lot. They waited until the day of the regular season started to pay Dak. Good player. They overpaid him, which constrains what they can do with the rest of the roster. It feels like they're going to do the same thing. And the other thing is, look, Micah Parsons is a great player, but he's not in the TJ Watt league for me, and he's not in the Myles Garrett league. And they're going to pay him like he is. And that's what the Dallas Cowboys do, and they're probably going to wait. They're going to overpay. And timeless, it just keeps repeating itself. It just feels like it's a reality show that drives headlines, conversations like this. And the Cowboys are no closer to that elusive Super Bowl.
And so you made a good point, because Parsons will likely get $41 million a year, which would then make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. He's worth it. We all think he's worth it. Why are they can you dive into the why? Because for the life of me, and I've been following this league for a long time in terms of playing, been covering it for only 2, I just don't get why you are negotiating against yourself if you're Jerry Jones. Please do your best to explain it to me.
Man, that's a tough task. I mean, a couple months ago, Jerry said, I don't even know who his agent is. So Parsons is rep by David Mulugeta. Every owner in this league knows who Mulugeta is, because Mulugeta negotiated the contract that pissed them all off, the Deshaun Watson contract, right?
Fully guaranteed.
I feel like we're part of a Netflix documentary right now. The Cowboys are just drumming up interest. They're drumming up theatrics. It feels like it's a show. And I don't know if he loves the spotlight and craves the spotlight, but it just feels like they set themselves up to do this every single year. And look, they have a new coach in there last year. Remember what happened? I mean, they fired Mike McCarthy. That was such an awkward, weird thing. He was half interested. He was going to maybe go to the Bears.
Super
then they
late,
just said
too.
no thanks.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, oh, we'll just give it to the next guy in line. And I know Brian Schottenheimer, and he's really sharp, but
Shoddy.
like I never thought to myself, like, head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But here we are. And they're going to pay Micah Parsons $40 million. I still think he disappears too much to make that kind of money. He'll just have games where he doesn't have the impact. And when you're paying that kind of cash, you need to impact the quarterback every game. And again, they're in a brutal division, and they're no longer chasing the Eagles in the division. They're chasing the Eagles and the Commanders. And it just feels like it's a big show, and we're all part of it, and we're all playing a role. And it just feels like it has the same ending every single time, either a disappointing playoff exit or they don't even make it to see the postseason.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to talk about, because if they do end up paying, and I do think they should pay now, there's no reason they should wait. If they would have paid them the first day that they were allowed to pay them, they would have saved over the course of a 4 or 5 year deal about $30 million. I know that's like nothing to Jerry. It's a lot, though. Over $6-7 million a year, that's a lot. The other thing, which is interesting, and I'm almost sure this is positive, because I had fact checkers at Fox do it. The Cowboys are about to become the first team to pay 3 separate players over like $32 million a year. So you look at that and you look at the total cap. I know the cap's going to go up next year, possibly to $300 million or whatever number that is. It's hard to build a team if all you do is pay the stars. Now, I do understand that these stars that they have in Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons are what Jerry Jones wants to be the next big 3 in Dallas. And I agree that they probably can. But let's switch gears for a second to Dak and Dak Prescott, because with Dak, he is only owed $40 million guaranteed next year in 2026. After that, the contract has 0 guarantees. I think Dak's under the most pressure he's been in his career to deliver, but if you look at the schedule, if you look at everything around him, if you look at a new play caller, if you look at Brian Schottenheimer as a new head coach, a new team, I know they went out and got George Pickens. What are the expectations, like the clear expectations for Dak and the Cowboys this year, given that they are in a really good division?
That's really fascinating because they're never a team that's in a rebuild, right? Jerry just simply will not allow that. But look, they weren't a good football team last year. Their offensive line isn't nearly what it used to be. They had a retirement. What is George Pickens going to do in Dallas? Like, do you have an answer? Like, I have no clue. He could fit in and be great. But again, there's only one football, and that football is going to go to CeeDee Lamb a lot.
Yeah.
And they kind of trotted out Zeke last year thinking they could just retread the 2017 rushing title, and it just feels like they're constantly shooting themselves in the foot with personnel decisions. They draft pretty well when they keep Jerry out of the room, if you know what I mean, and they pay their stars. And look, if you're going to pay 3 stars in this league, the way the league is played right now, you want to pay a defensive end, a receiver, and a quarterback, and then a left tackle as well. But I just feel like they're nowhere near the roster that Washington has, and they're nowhere close to the roster that the Philadelphia Eagles have. So I think they're a team that's on the outside looking in for those 7 playoff spots in the NFC when it's all said and done.
Just 15 months ago, Dak Prescott was voted second in MVP voting. And now, you know, I'm not going to say people are. I'm talking about, hey, if he doesn't make the playoffs and doesn't play well this year, going into what almost seems like a decade into this league, do you think if they don't make the playoffs, this is speculative, I know it, I like it. Do you think they have to start looking for another guy?
The problem they're in right now, and this is brutally honest because I think Dak Prescott's a very good football player. He's a B-plus player making A-plus money. And they just don't have enough around him. I don't mind paying a quarterback $50 million if he's Josh Allen or Mahomes or Lamar or Burrow. But that's probably the end of my list. And the answer to your question, I think, is very fascinating because Jerry Jones leads with his heart a little bit more than his head sometimes. He is on the record saying he loves Dak Prescott. He overpaid him last year, and he knew it, and he came out and said, look, if I'm going to overpay someone, it's going to be Dak Prescott. That's not the best way to run a football team. I think it's a fascinating conversation that they can get out of his contract after this year if it's disappointing. I just don't see Jerry Jones doing that. I think he loves this guy, and I think he's going to ride with him until maybe the wheels fall off.
Yeah. No, that's true. Good point here. All right, from one quarterback to another, we finally got our first look at Aaron Rodgers in a Steeler uniform this week. He is wearing number 8. Rodgers at Pittsburgh mandatory minicamp talked about why he loved the fit with the Steelers. Here we go.
Steelers the right fit for you?
I think it starts with Mike Tomlin. I mean, I've been a fan of his for a long time. There's a few iconic franchises in the NFL. I played for one of them for 18 years. This is another one of those. There's something special about, obviously, this area. So many great quarterbacks are from Pittsburgh. I feel like Pittsburgh has been a part of my career from the beginning. Playing for Mike McCarthy for 13 years, having Tom Clements, or Tommy Clements, depending on how old you are, as my quarterback coach forever. Don Capers, Kevin Green, Darren Perry, Ben McAdoo, Frank Signetti, Luke Getsy. I don't want to forget anybody, but a lot of Yinzers in my life.
All right, you can't deny Rodgers' resume, but at the same time, Father Time is undefeated. He's 41, turning 42 in this season. Myles Garrett already said he can't wait to add Rodgers to his Halloween graveyard of QBs he's sacked. Is Rodgers in for a shock playing in the almighty AFC North?
I do think he will end up in Myles Garrett's graveyard.
Yes,
I just
no
think
doubt.
Garrett's going to get to him at some point. And the reality is this. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has had more losing seasons, that's 3, than he's had playoff wins since 2017. 2017 was a long time ago. He won 2 MVPs during that span. Just 2 playoff wins? And I don't think he was the same player last year with the Jets. And I know he's 2 years removed from the Achilles right now. But the biggest thing I question, and this goes back to our conversation on Monday, is this dude all in? Like, Chase, you know this better than anybody. In this league, at that position, and I'm doing this big project on quarterbacks and why they don't succeed, you have to be all in. You have to basically devote your entire existence to being a professional quarterback. Aaron's done it for a long time. He's really smart. He's really sharp. He's seen all the defenses. But if your heart's not fully in it, and he admitted this on McAfee, like, I got a lot going on in my life. He just got married. He just shows up to minicamp the first day. I don't know if he's all in. And if he's not all in, this could just end horrendously.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting conversation for me, and I know we talked about it a little bit, but I don't know how much Aaron Rodgers adds to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, we talked about him earlier in the show. In general, look, they have DK. But when you lose your leading rusher and you lose your leading receiver, and I know DK is going to be fine. They're going to do good things with DK. Freiermuth is good, not great, right? Reliable weapon for zone in the middle of the field. I'm just not sure if Rodgers has enough weapons around him to be successful because, look, we don't think this defensive collapse is going to happen again like it did last year, right? Russell Wilson, I believe, started like 5-1 or 6-0, and he ended up 6-5 as a starter. They really, really tailed off at the end of the season. Justin Fields obviously was there, went 4-2 before. Watching him, though, the last 10 games of the year and really breaking down Aaron Rodgers' film, it was really good film. He looked from a standpoint of health, fully healthy. Achilles finally trusting it. His game is not as much getting around and outside of the pocket. That's where it gives me pause because that offensive line for Pittsburgh was really bad at times. And you went from 2 completely different styles of quarterback that likes to run around, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, to a guy who, in Aaron Rodgers, likes to stay static in the pocket, likes to see things. Arthur Smith, I know he's adaptable, but it's a completely different offense, lots of shifts, lots of motions. What do you think success is for Rodgers and Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Don't you think this comes down to his ability to mesh with Arthur Smith? Like
No
Arthur
doubt.
Smith, like you said, adaptable, sure, but he likes, under center, ball control, running the football, and that's fine. That fits with the Steelers. Aaron loves the shotgun, like you said. He's not the runner and the extender of plays that he used to be. But I go back to what you said at the very beginning. I don't think he makes the Steelers that much better. I don't look at the Steelers and say, oh, Aaron Rodgers at this stage of his career is a huge step up from Russell Wilson. I just don't see that. Justin Fields did some different things for them last year. I don't see them changing the way I look at the AFC North either. I just think Burrow is way ahead. And, I mean, this is just like basic stuff, but if you look at the divisions, almost every year, the best quarterback in the division, his team wins that division, like almost without a fault. It's how it's run. And the AFC East for years and years. And it's just it's how it's running. And look at the AFC North right now. Lamar Jackson's the king of that division. Burrow can challenge him. I don't see the Steelers in a much different way. And I feel like this is a forced marriage. They can say what they want right now. If Aaron wasn't ready to walk away, he wanted to be wanted. If Aaron wasn't going to go to Pittsburgh, what the heck were the Steelers going to do? Like, literally, who were they going to start? Mason Rudolph? For a playoff team last year? So I just the writing seems like it's on the wall, and I will eat my words if I'm wrong. But I just don't see any way this team isn't 7, 8, 9, 10 wins at best. They're just not in the class with the top teams in the AFC.
Yeah, so we both agree probably the third in their division, right? So then that brings me to the next point before we move on. Mike Tomlin, right? A lot of talk last offseason. I think Mike's one of the best coaches in the game, no doubt about it. Super Bowl trophy, all sorts of stuff. But there was talk last year in the offseason of, hey, is it time to have his Andy Reid moment, meaning move on like how Andy did from Philly? It's just sort of maybe overstayed your welcome. We're never going to fire you. He'll never get fired. The one thing that they have struggled with, and the person making the decisions on this is Mike Tomlin, has been the quarterback position since Ben Roethlisberger has retired, right? And even when Big Ben was there, it was an old aging quarterback with a defense, the highest paid defense in the NFL. Where do you see because this is a one-year rental, where do you see Mike Tomlin playing into all this situation? If Aaron Rodgers plays 1 year and they don't get to the playoffs, I know he's not going to get fired. My whole thing, they got to figure out the quarterback position, man.
Isn't this awkward? Like, they're not going to fire Mike Tomlin.
No.
And the one stat that gets thrown around all the time is that he's never had a losing season. But you say that in Pittsburgh around Steelers fans, and they will get feisty with you. They don't like that stat. They don't care about average. They don't care about 8-8 seasons or 9-8. Like, that does nothing for them when they have 6 Lombardis when you walk into the practice facility. Who does this remind you of? What's another aging defensive coach who couldn't get the quarterback position right after his longtime star left, right? Belichick. Belichick's teams in New England were a mess offensively.
I put that out of my head.
They couldn't draft. They couldn't play. They couldn't move the ball on offense. It was abysmal. This is the best coach of all time, right? And Mike Tomlin is a tremendous culture builder. He's a tremendous defensive coach. But this is the blind spot on his resume right now. And I don't know what the Rooneys are going to do, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers at 41 is going to come in and change the narrative that the Steelers haven't been able to figure out offensive football for 5 years. I just think it's going to be the same old story. Draft middle, stay middle, finish middle.
That's a fascinating point, man. All right, coming up, no outright winner for the starting quarterback job in Cleveland. They got 4 guys competing for a start. What are we doing? Where things stand in Brea after mandatory minicamp next on Scoop City. All right, the Browns wrapped up their minicamp Thursday. All 4 quarterbacks taking reps. Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and, of course, Shedeur Sanders. Still no definitive quarterback 1, which is a little bit crazy, but it's early enough. Cleveland is desperate for stability at quarterback after using 40 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. Zach, is this one of the craziest situations in the NFL right now, and how does this play out heading into training camp next month?
Can we just shout out Zach Jackson, our Browns beat writer at The Athletic, because he has to cover this nonsense again for the 15th year in a row. Training camp's going to be wild in Cleveland, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, where do you go? Do you go with the veteran? You go with Joe Flacco? I'm in Indy. He was here last year, and he played good, and then he played really, really bad. I mean, how is Dylan Gabriel getting reps ahead of Shedeur Sanders? The thing I go back to more than anything, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Chase, is do you trust the teams? Some teams know how to handle situations like this. They just get it. Some teams don't. I think we know which camp the Browns fall in.
Well, yeah, and I would probably be don't. And this just brings me back to the situation on why Shedeur Sanders fell. Situations like this are awkward as hell for everyone involved, including the team. Because if Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry come out and say, hey, it's just Flacco and Pickett competing for the job, then they're chastised or criticized. Why isn't Shedeur doing this? Now they have all 4 saying that all 4 are competing for the starting job. Yet anyone in football knows there's not even remotely enough reps or sample size to even get an evaluation on a quarterback. And then of those 4 guys competing, including Shedeur is the only one in camp, mandatory minicamp, and all of OTAs not to get any reps with the ones. So now people are like, well, So if you start Shedeur or if you don't, this is the situation. Unfortunately, I say that because I think Shedeur could be a good player in this league, but the Browns have gotten themselves in. I feel like they've tried to get out ahead of this. This has become much more of a spectacle off the field than it is on the field. For me, I am torn on this situation because you do draft Dillon Gabriel 3rd overall. They fell in love with his intangibles. You watch Shedeur Sanders, though, on the field and in college, in my opinion, was a better quarterback. And he fell for all the reasons why we know. This is not that show to get into that. The competition, in my opinion, there's 4. Way too many. You have to have a plan of attack for when you get back to training camp, because a lot of those training camp practices, Zach, they're open to the public. You can't say that 4 guys are competing for the job. Not only does it screw with receiver timing, but it's just unrealistic. Get in there, get 2 guys. And I don't care what 2 guys. I don't think all 4 are going to be there. I think they're going to trade one or cut one. Probably one of the veterans would be my opinion. It's just a fascinating situation to see how it plays out because the Cleveland Browns have 2 first-round picks next year. Obviously, they traded that Travis Hunter one. The quarterback class, from what we hear and what I have seen, very small amounts, is a much stronger class, almost like the Jaden Daniels, the Caleb Williams, the Bo Nixes, in terms of depth, top guys. I could see 4 to 5 guys going in the first round, including possibly Arch Manning, which, we don't know how he's going to play. There's a lot of... So if you do draft, and they drafted, and I know I'm being long, but I will stay with it. If you drafted Dillon Gabriel and you drafted Shedeur Sanders, you have 2 veterans, which you sort of know what you're going to get. Those 2 veterans, in my opinion, they're not the franchise quarterback of this franchise moving forward. So why not maybe play Dillon Gabriel? Why not maybe play Shedeur Sanders? Maybe a little bit earlier than you think, because you want to get a true evaluation, and the only true evaluation from Andy Reid, from Sean Payton, the coaches I've been with, you have to play. So are they good enough to not draft a quarterback next year? It's just, there's so many layers of this conversation. I digress. Thoughts on what I just told you and spewed to you?
Well, it's a delicate dance the Cleveland Browns are trying to pull off right now. It's going to be really interesting. They're playing the long game, and I do think their GM is pretty smart, Andrew Berry. I got to know him when he was in Indy. But the problem is, like you said, there's 4 quarterbacks competing for the job, and there's not enough footballs to go around. And even if Shedeur does get reps in training camp, who's he going to be throwing to? 3rd and 4th stringers. And if he ever gets on the field for the Cleveland Browns in a regular season game, he's going to have no rapport with the first teamers. And that's just going to be what I'm talking about all the time in terms of setting up these young quarterbacks to fail. And if he's not getting those reps, he's not going to have a prayer. I think he's a trade piece probably eventually. But again, it doesn't seem like the Browns have a solidified plan of what they're going to do. But I think at the end of the day, gun to their head, they would never admit this publicly. They're looking at 2026. They're looking at the top of that draft. They're going to use those true first-round picks on their future.
If you had to guess, how do you see this playing out?
I think it's going to be a soap opera. As one GM told me, and you made a good point a minute ago, the beauty of training camp is that fans are there, reporters are there. We get to see everything. What the GM told me was, you watch the same tape I do. So the fans and the reporters are going to see how these guys look. They're going to see if Shedeur is way better than Dillon Gabriel or vice versa. They're going to see if Kenny Pickett's way better than 45-year-old Joe Flacco. I think it's going to be a mess. I don't think they have a chance to compete in the AFC North. And I think they're going to have to trade one of the rookies probably. But the problem is
the rookies, huh?
They're not going to have enough reps. I mean, if they keep Shedeur off the field, maybe that helps them because I don't know, man. Let me know what you're thinking, Cleveland Browns, because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, and the dog pound's fired up right there as your dogs are barking in the background.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
They like our conversation for sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to Scoop City. We appreciate you. For Zak Keefer, I am Chase Daniel. Bye, guys. Tag you next time.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.